there?
I'm here.
Great. So let me introduce myself. My name is Henry Bistritsky. I'm CEO of Strata Blue. We're a marketing agency focusing on digital marketing, creative, content, and strategy.
And my name is Ryan Brock. I'm the founder and CEO of Metonymy Media. We are an agency of writers based in Indianapolis, and we work on, we offer writing services, we do content marketing, strategy, and execution, and we do training to help people communicate better.
Welcome, everybody. So let's get started. So the purpose of this webinar, Rankings Revenue, How SEO and Content Work Together, is for us to educate you on how strategy, marketing, SEO, and content are intimately connected and can really be measured, especially with regard to ROI in 2016. The focus is a lot of the focus is on content and why it's important, and how do you know it's actually good. More importantly, how do you leverage it within your marketing strategy for growth. So let's look at some trends that are happening in the industry today. One of the more interesting ones is the one that I'm showing you, which was a survey given in front of very focused marketers in terms of what they feel is important. And number one is content marketing, big data, marketing automation, mobile marketing, and as you can see, the list goes down. So what's happening in the industry is content is becoming key on many different areas, and I will get into it why, and really is the focus of a lot of budgets and a lot of measurement that are happening across the agency industry. And the kind of content we're talking about is no longer just a bunch of keywords. It's also about long, comprehensive content, the kind of content that gets you engaged, the kind of content that gets you focused. So the focus on the webinar, and I like to call this my pancake slide, is content is the currency. It's the food that is on top of strategy, marketing, content marketing, and SEO. And if you're able to actually leverage it properly, you can truly figure out the ROI. So going back to the pancake, I'd like to actually turn over the microphone to Ryan. You can talk more about content and why it's so important.
Thanks, Henry. So like Henry said, what we're here to talk about today is what to me is a very interesting trend in marketing, because content on one hand is such a creative endeavor, right? You need writers, you need people who are comfortable and interested in words and style and voice and things like that. You need to make content that's good. That's something that we need to be able to evaluate. But beyond that, content is part of content marketing, which is of course part of a greater marketing strategy for any business, and therefore needs to be more than just words, needs to be more than just individual pieces, but needs to be intelligent, it needs to be measurable, and content needs to work towards something. Now, if we look at the Content Marketing Institute's definition of content marketing, which I think is very good, we learned that content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. For a lot of people who are doing content now, and clearly based on the stats that Henry just shared, a lot of people are, content isn't something that they think of like this. They think of, if I write content, it's going to be very effective. And so you end up with this problem. And this is why we're talking about why you should even think about content in the first place to start this presentation off, because this is a really scary statistic to me. Fully 60 to 70% of content churned out by B2B marketing departments today sits unused. This stark statistic underscores the urgent need for a content revolution in B2B organizations. It's like so many marketing departments, marketing specialists are being told content is king, content is key, content is what's going to help drive your digital marketing efforts, that they're just publishing as much as they can. And like the American pickers, it then becomes their job to sift through all of the useless sort of content that's sitting out there in the very crowded marketplace and find the good stuff. That's the job of the marketer, but also the job, if we do our job poorly, of the reader. And we want to make sure they don't have to do that. We want to make sure they don't have to sift through stuff to find what's really good. In other words, lots of people are treating content like the field of dreams. They think, I write a blog post, I put that blog post on the internet, and people will come, and that will therefore turn into business for me. This sort of captures the mantra I've been hearing for a while now in marketing, which is, there it is, You just have to write great content. That's a phrase, just write great content. I've been hearing for a very long time. Anyone who's out there talking about how important content is, they say, you know, ultimately, if you write bad content, content that's just keyword stuff, content that doesn't connect with your audiences, it's not going to be good. But if you write great content, and of course, it's relevant to note that they don't ever tell you what it means, right? People can't tell you in a blog post what it means to write great content. They just say, just write great content. Obviously, if content is a smaller piece of a much bigger puzzle, there's more to it than that. And that's something that I'm going to get into today, and that's something that Henry's going to expound upon even more when I hand it back to him. But before we get into that, before we start talking about what makes bad content bad, what makes good content good, and then what makes it effective in growing a business, I want to show you guys sort of over the last few years the role content has started to play in marketing and how effective it really can be when it is great. So starting back in 2013, if we're looking ahead to 2016, that's just 3 years ago, less really. HubSpot publishes their State of Inbound 2013, which is this great resource that collects all of the statistics they can on their customers and how people are using inbound marketing software, how people are using content in order to grow. Back in 2013, they reported that only 9% of companies that had a blog were reporting a positive ROI for inbound marketing. And there's a lot of problems there. Maybe it's because they were too early in the game. They didn't understand how to use content well. It was a relatively new development. Maybe, though, and this is where I think everything Henry's going to have to say is really important, they just didn't know how to measure it. They didn't know how to make it effective. But the thing is even 1 year later, in 2014, HubSpot publishes that same report, State of Inbound, and they're able to say that marketers who have prioritized blogging, and we're going to get into what that means here in a minute, they're 13 times more likely to enjoy positive ROI than someone who doesn't. So blogging is just one piece of a content marketing strategy, but people who actually give it its due really do see an ROI to that big of a tune. Beyond that, we look at a stat from this year. It's lagging. There it is. Content marketing generates 3 times as many leads for people as traditional outbound marketing, but costs 52% less. In other words, if you take an advertisement and put $1,000 behind it, and you put only 38% of that budget behind inbound marketing, content marketing, you should be able to expect to see 3 times the leads. That's worth looking at, and that's why we should be taking content seriously. So let's talk about what happens when content fails. If you look at this, this is a very familiar picture. Henry made the joke when we were first putting this presentation together. He brought up the Where's the Beef Lady, and I was born in the late 80s, so he asked if I was even old enough to know what this was. And the thing is even if I wasn't there to watch this live on television, I knew exactly what he was talking about when he talked about the Where's the Beef Lady. It was Wendy's tremendously popular advertising campaign that actually didn't do anything for them. And this is really, I think, emblematic of one of the problems with content that fails. You look at this campaign, Wendy said, you know, we want to win some market share from our competitors, from McDonald's, from Burger King, so let's put together this campaign. And they did it really well. The creative was excellent. They hired the perfect old lady. But where's the beef? You know, you got this image. I mean, this image I have here isn't even from the commercials. It's from a board game they made about the commercials. Clearly, awareness of this commercial, awareness of this creative was huge. But the problem for Wendy's is the Where's the Beef Lady didn't actually make people feel comfortable about going into Wendy's. It didn't give them anything. It didn't help them envision what their interaction with that company would be. It focused instead on an imaginary created person and on the beef, which is something that ultimately isn't a big differentiator or not big enough of one, clearly, to help Wendy's get market share. So you can take the problems there and apply them to content as well. A lot of times people who are blogging are complaining. We hear from prospects all the time, well, I've tried to blog, I've tried doing you know, some white papers, some case studies, but I'm not seeing any ROI. You know, people are reading my blog, they like my blog, but they're not actually doing anything with it. So they don't want to justify any further focus, any further investment on content. But if we unpack that problem a little bit more, we see that there's a few really, really good, really predictable reasons why content tends to fail for people who are just getting started with it. Number one, it's not consistent. When you're publishing content, it needs to be consistent, not only in content, but also in just the frequency with which you publish it. And a lot of people try to publish a news update on their website, and, let's do it this Tuesday, and then in 3 weeks we'll publish something on a Thursday, and then in a month we'll publish something on a Monday. There's no consistency. Along those lines, the content doesn't provide real value. That's something that Henry mentioned in that first opening slide looking at the statistics. Content has to be valuable. It has to actually engage people, because if content helps people get to your page by increasing your rankings, the more important role it plays in your greater marketing strategy is helping to really engage them once they're there. So if you don't give them that value, if you don't make with the goods, so to speak, and share your knowledge and answer their questions, it's not going to work. Next, it doesn't serve an explicit purpose in the greater marketing strategy. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's important that every piece of content that's published is connected to the greater strategy somehow. And finally, this is something that I think is the biggest one. I think I've probably said that about every one of them so far. But more than anything, content ends up getting left behind. There's so many different things to do in marketing. There's so many different approaches to take, outbound, inbound, that the writing's left to an intern or someone internal who has a different job to do, and deadlines get missed, and content doesn't get published, and it's just very easy with how difficult it is to consistently put together good content to just let it go. So with that in mind, it's funny because B2B marketers say that their greatest barriers to lead generation success our lack of resources and staffing, budgeting, and time. I think all four of those consistent problems that happen when people are filling a content are wrapped up in that problem, because they either don't know how to do it themselves, they don't know how to write the content, they don't know how to measure it, they don't know how to make sure it's working, or they don't have the budget to hire someone who can, or maybe it's a matter of they don't want to have the budget, they haven't been convinced that they need the budget, or they don't have time to work through either of those problems, and so it just doesn't happen. So in other words, to sum that back up, content is less likely to generate new business when it isn't a priority, because throwing content out there and hoping people come to it is not going to be a measurable growth for any business. But what are some things that you can prioritize, things that should be a priority involved with a content strategy to make sure it doesn't fail? First of all, you provide that real value. And second of all, this is really the meat of it, you need to start thinking about how to use those different pieces of content for explicit purposes as they fit into your marketing strategy. So think of it like this. Think about your traditional sales funnel. You have the awareness part at the top. It's the broadest part of the funnel. Then you have interest, then you have decision, then you have action all the way at the bottom. You're going to see when Henry gets into the greater digital marketing and traditional marketing funnel and just the whole machine of how it looks today moving into 2016, that it's become a lot more complicated than that. People come and go at different parts, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot to forget. But if we're just talking about content itself, those big pieces, the blog posts, the emails, the case studies, the white papers, the things that have the ability to really engage customers and convert them, those minimal building blocks still tend to form what is roughly something that should mirror your business's sales funnel. So if you can match your content to that sales funnel, you'll start seeing that as you start tracking, as you start implementing other things, it's going to be more successful. So for example, blogs, think of those as the top of the funnel. They're your widest reach. You can publish more of them than anything else. You can hit new keywords. You can drive search traffic, social traffic. Next down the line on interest, you have emails. You can consistently engage with prospects, people who are aware of who you are, but might need reminders of what makes you special. You have case studies when someone's finally really into you and ready to make a decision that give them what that Wendy's ad was missing. You give them the ability to see themselves being your customer, to understand whether or not you're the right fit for them, or if your stories intersect the way they should. Finally, you have white papers and premium content, those downloadables that are just so good, that are so practical, that are so valuable. The guide to do this, the complete reference for this, the white paper that shows how we accomplish this amazing task that you can recreate. Those are the things that hide behind the lead gen forms and actually lead to action, and that's where everything comes down. But you can see if you just publish a blog post, you're never going to get to that bottom of the funnel. Finally, and Henry will talk more about this too, you need to see all these things through long enough to get results. If you do it for a month, and you don't see something coming in and you walk away, that's a failed campaign because you haven't given the campaign long enough, which usually we're looking at about 6 months worth of content published on a consistent basis to really start seeing an impact. So let's talk about that then. What makes great content effective? Because all we've really done so far is talk about what makes content fail, right? But we also need to ask ourselves, within the content itself, if we're looking at individual pieces of content, how do we know that the stuff we're publishing is really of any value? To me, this statistic kind of captures that problem as it should relate to anyone who's trying to grow a business. According to the B2B technology marketing community, the biggest challenge B2B marketers face in regards to lead generation is generating high quality leads. That's 61% of the respondents in that survey said that. The problem with that is, if done well, your content marketing strategy, those blog posts, those emails, those case studies, those white papers, should be helping people chart a journey through your content to where they have selected, they have understood that, yes, this is for me. So if you try to be all things to all people, you're not really generating quality leads. So what we need to start doing is looking at the ways we can evaluate pieces of content based on how effective they are, not how great they are. And I think that requires a little bit of a shift up front for marketers who are looking to really get into content marketing, because a lot of times marketers report that they want to see increased traffic to their website. That's like the biggest metric they're after with digital marketing. And that is important, and there are a lot of factors that go into that. But when it comes to saying, do we have good content? Is the content we're writing actually going to help our business grow? Those page hits, that traffic, is in no way an indicator of that. We have to look at the content itself. Same with page rank. We might actually be writing content that's good enough to get our page rank up. That doesn't necessarily mean when people get there, they're loving what they read. So we instead have to find a new way to judge the quality of the content. Now, as the founder of a creative writing agency, I butt up against all the time in conversation with prospects. They think if I'm saying I can promise that my agency will write great, effective, keyword is effective, content for your company, whatever it is, they think that, you know, because my staff are fiction writers, because we're college professors, that we're just really grading content based on grammar or style or some artistic quality. And while those things are important, and you need to have grammar down pat in everything you write so it doesn't distract the reader from your real message, and while your style needs to be an extension of your brand, that's not really, for me, what drives my understanding of a page's, a given blog post, a landing page's quality as a piece of content. Really, we have to go back to the analytics, but you skip over the hits bar that most people look at. And for me, you look at these three really important numbers. The most important to me is average time on page. If I write, a 500 to 800 word blog post, and I see that over 1,000 views, people are only spending an average time of, let's say, 20 seconds on that page, I know they're not interested. I know the audience I'm promoting that content to, however I'm promoting that content, they don't care about what I have to say. Now, if you're trying to understand the value of your content, 30 seconds is an industry average. That's what most experts will tell you should be looking for. I happen to know that with my website, with Autonomy Media's blog, we've experimented with this a lot, throwing out a lot of the best practices I've told you, in interest of evaluating how does an individual piece of content tell us about its quality. So we did an experiment. There's a case study on our website actually called Just Write Great Content, fittingly enough, where we explored, okay, if we don't have a plan, if we don't map content to our funnel, if we don't really care about promoting it to the right audiences, if there's no strategy behind it, we just write what my writers want to write because we're writers, and this is what we do even if we're not getting paid for it. What happens? Well, we would publish blog posts easily double, our normal recommended 500 to 800 words, and see average time on page of up to 9 minutes. Now, that didn't result in growth. That didn't actually result in leads for us, but we were able to see that if the content's written well, and if the audience who encounters it likes it, they're going to stick around. You can capture their attention span for more than those 30 seconds. Beyond that, we look at exit percent. We want that to be as close to 0 as possible, especially on the higher end of the funnel. If people are coming to your emails, if they're coming to your blog posts, you want them to be going to your website and going to more pages on your website. You don't want them to just be bouncing right away, which, speaking of which, we also have bounce rate. 40 to 60% is average, but we need to work to get it lower. And this is something in a few minutes when I hand this off to Henry that he's going to be able to speak to even more than I am, because while these are individual benchmarks for a page of content and how quality it is, really where you start cooking, with fire is when you can take these metrics and not only apply them to individual pages, but use marketing automation, use big data to start really learning about individual customer journeys and answering really tough questions that you couldn't without that software, without that technology, to understand where people fall off, where they convert, things like that. Sorry, I'm frozen. There we go. So once you get those analytics together, the few things I'll really caution you against is jumping to conclusions. Once you start publishing blog posts, it's really easy to jump on the analytics and say, is my blog content good? Are people reading it? Do they want it? And you put all of your eggs in that basket. You write this new post, you have this new idea, this new way of talking about yourself that's going to expand to a whole new marketing campaign, content marketing campaign. First step, I think, is to really make sure that your web content, your brochure website fits, but don't go nuking your old content. Don't do the American Pickers thing, throw out all the garbage and only keep the good stuff. What I do is take time, like I said, 6 months, learn from your analytics. As you publish blogs, as you publish white papers and landing pages, start learning. Where are people spending the most time? What are they actually enjoying? What is leading to conversions? And as you look at those numbers, the patterns will start to emerge. So not only are you going to be able to shape your content strategy moving forward, but you're also going to be able to go back to your existing web content, both on your website and anywhere else online, and start revising that messaging so it's in line with the messaging that you've already measured and you've already proven is more likely to connect with your audience. When it comes to those blog posts and those white papers, the last bit of advice I'll give is keep paying attention to those analytics, but treat those blogs and those white papers, which are really the most important parts from a content perspective, as really good tools. Keep fresh, make sure to publish regularly, and broaden your reach and invite prospects into your funnel with your blog posts. As you learn, make sure that you give old posts time to pick up momentum. Make sure that every time you sit down to start a new editorial calendar for the next month, you're looking at new keywords that are going to complement your pay-per-click strategy. You're answering new questions that are in line with the questions you've already answered that are doing very well in previous content. And make sure to look for new ways to engage niche audiences that can then get connected to your wider web of content. Take people from that niche content down to those landing pages and that premium content, which, if you're doing it right, should be broad enough that it can speak to a really wide audience. And that's really how the premium content works. The more of those white papers you publish, the more of those ebooks and those comprehensive guides, the more different indicators you have when you generate a lead of what that person is interested in and what they're looking for. And that's really what it's all about. So what comes next? Let's say you've got your strategy in order. You really understand the theory behind it. Your strategy is sound. Your analytics are looking good. The biggest question of all that you have to answer, the biggest metric you need to look at is ROI. And that's where I'm going to hand it over to Henry, because I've kind of equipped you to look at your content and think, is it doing what it should be? What Henry's going to do is take that one step further and say, is your content part of a greater strategy, that puzzle piece, that is eventually trackable, measurable, and leading to business growth? So take it away, Henry.
Thanks, Ryan. So actually, I want to start with some buzzworthy SEO trends that you must know about for 2016. And the reason I want to talk about this is not because I want to go deeply into them, but you can just kind of see what they are. They're kind of like, what does it mean? In reality, it doesn't really matter, because it's 2017, we'll have new SEO trends. 2018, Google is constantly moving. Just to give you a quick update on this, direct traffic basically means Google can record your traffic from social signals, and how do you actually figure out what it is? Rich answers is basically meaning that Google now answers you when you do a search in a very different way, as opposed to when you just Google, pants and so on. A double algorithm theory is that Google is now looking at key metrics around what Ryan just said. How long are you dwelling on the site? How long is your content being socially shared? What are the bounce rates? Is it actually interesting content? And we've seen some studies also that if you do a 1,600-word blog as opposed to 400-word blog, the numbers do go up. more competition from Google. You know, you're doing your SEO right and everything's going well, but in reality, Google is taking up the space. They're putting up more carousel ads. They're putting up different types of ads because they know their old school ads are not working as well. People get desensitized, so they're serving up the information in a way that's actually competitive to the organic searches which you may be on. And the keywords also morph into collections, meaning that you no longer would suppose you manufacture pants. A collection could also include work called trousers or pantaloons or whatever. So SEO is constantly changing, but the way it's changing is around content. Good, solid content that engages users is what it's all about. And you can just kind of see in terms of what SEO specialists are saying with regard to that. But enough about SEO for a second. Let's talk about the bigger picture. So let's go back to the pancake. Um, Content is the currency that drives strategy, marketing automation, content marketing, and SEO. And the reason we want to do all this is really the ROI part, and to really kind of calculate it, because it's been very, very difficult before that to do it. And the reason for, but before I even get into that, the intersection of SEO is also important. I mentioned before that how Google is approaching it, the latest trends, and you can actually see it here. I actually given Brian here a bit of credit, so I kind of did a screenshot of him. But what he's basically saying is very straightforward, is that search engine optimization without content a human would like to read is just spam. Because the old days of just typing in a few keywords are over. You typing in where should I go on holiday and so on. And we talk like that to our phones now. It's all about the same thing. You know, Siri, give me the best food with 100 calories or more or something. That's where content is going, and so your content that you're putting out needs to educate, and this is what Google is looking for, to be able to actually then raise your stats in SEO. But going back to the pancake and talking about marketing automation, word's been around for about 2008. I think this particular slide is from 2008. It really just means the ability to kind of manage this massive information flow that's coming at you from different pieces of content and different things that you're doing, and the ability to actually score that and to be able to actually link it to a user and to be able to actually measure it. In the old days, marketing automation was for enterprises. You think of Marketo and so on. But nowadays, especially in 15 and 16, has really kind of blossomed with regard to an average company. Small to medium-sized business can actually leverage marketing automation effectively to get that job done. So in the old days, you may think of marketing automation as email marketing. You may think of Constant Contact or MailChimp and so on. But what's happened in the industry is that all of these different pieces have come together because you can still do email marketing. You can manage your campaigns. You can manage your events. You can track people where they're going. You can score all these folks. You can create landing forms and web forms yourself. No more, you don't have to go to a developer somewhere. It is like drag and drop like you would do PowerPoint. And obviously you can track it all. But more importantly, all of this goes right into your CRM. Now, what I'm saying is your CRM. You don't even need to upgrade your CRM if you don't need to, because the APIs are so open that you actually take all this information and narrow it down. So why would you want to do this? What you want to do this is because obviously you'd want to be able to measure the ROI. But the ROI is actually straightforward. It's return on sales, what the profit is, what have you invested times 100, and you get the percentage. And you've seen this before because, 3-4 years ago, I was kind of hitting my head against the wall trying to figure out a different way of doing it as opposed to this. Because this is an overall number, and how do you measure it? How would I measure if this specific piece of content really attributed to this? How would I measure a specific event really did this? Because everything just kind of gets bundled. And so you still do the same thing. You create your business strategy, you create your marketing strategy, and you have the demographics and psychographics, and that's what we do. And then you create content strategy, create the white paper, and so on, and you'll be able to actually then reach out and do it. In fact, this particular webinar is exactly that. We created content, we reached out to you, and you showed up. The problem is that companies have trouble measuring the ROI. And it's just because you're doing all these different things, including us. We're ranked #1 if you type in digital marketing Indianapolis. I mean, that's great. Do we get more leads out of it? Yes. Should we close more of those leads? Probably. Should we be able to actually act upon them better? Yes. Now, I'm talking about us a year ago, but it is what it is. I mean, it's just how happens. Now, and the reason for it is because if you look at the companies, you don't define the desired results. You just want more revenue. There's no focus on that sometimes. You leap before they look. Gosh, how many times have I had companies come to me and go, oh my God, I need to be on Facebook, or oh my God, my competitor's ranking for these words. I want to be better than him. You better do something about it. Oh, by the way, I have this budget and I better see the results in 3 months or you're out, because they've already been burnt before by other companies. Um, and the fact is that when you're collecting all this data, what do you do with it? I could show them Google Analytics. I can go in and say what your traffic is, but what do you do with it? And how does it affect all the different pieces of your marketing investment? And the folks have interdepartmental difficulties. You want to be able to link the customer to your efforts, and sometimes sales doesn't talk to marketing, doesn't talk to finance. The CEO is not on board because, try to explain to this, or I've tried, explain PPC to the CEO or something, very focused. And so the measurements get very, very elusive, builds frustration, and it gets just difficult sometimes. And sometimes you feel like you're throwing a dart and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, because not that you can't do it, it's just all the pieces within that customer or the company are just not there. So what happens then? If you look at this particular study that was done in 2015 to a bunch of marketers, they asked them, what are the metrics for B2B content success? Web traffic, website traffic, because it's difficult to get to the other pieces. And so from our perspective, there have been certain customers that let us go, or we actually let them go because we just simply could not prove the ROI. We couldn't provide what they wanted because we just didn't have the ability to actually go in there and deal with the internal politics that they possess sometimes. So going back to this, you're thinking, okay, so what do we do to fix this? Because at the end of the day, we're still stuck in this particular model with regard to calculating it. But what if we actually created a measurable business strategy? What if we created a measurable marketing strategy and a measurable content strategy and focused on the actual user? So instead of focusing on the back end, we focused on them and follow their entire digital journey to figure out what they've done and how effective it is and really what the ROI behind it is. So what we're doing then is taking all of these different pieces which all rely on content, and to be able to link it to a CRM record so this way you can actually see what's happening. So what you're able to do, if you look at it from a different perspective, is, this person went, got an email, attended the webinar, looked at this particular testimonial, looked at this white paper, purchased something, visited my website, came from Facebook. You can actually score it all. And the reason you want to do this is because then you can kind of see what's working, what's not, what values are not happening, what is happening. So I can literally say that this particular testimonial that I created, that I sent out during this particular campaign, didn't really work for me. Or even more focused, I can say that this guy did not even open it, or he did open it. Why? So if you look at it from a perspective of consolidation, when you put the points up, you're able to then store all these things and see the clicks and see what unsubscribes, you see the visits, and all that links directly to the CRM system that you currently have. And you're able to actually then slice it and dice it multiple ways to figure out what the right approach is with regard to how you actually communicate with the customer. The biggest benefit we've seen is really customer segmentation. It's amazing that, the customers do have the ability to understand who their market is, what the market is, but if you actually decide to fine tune it even further, or even further than that, it gets a little hazy. So if you're able to actually kind of hyper focus on real key customers that are providing you the biggest profit and understand what's actually driving them, what kind of content you need, you're able to actually then really drive the conversion rates. So going back to this, when you're thinking about marketing automation, we could talk about lead scoring, we could talk about ability to create pages, but really the ROI is what I'm interested in, because I'm going to be very frank with you. If I'm able to provide you the ROI and you see the profit from what I do for you, you will keep me. You will make me your partner, because our goal is not to, do some campaign for you, is to be your partner going forward and to be able to provide true value for you. So let's look at the journey from a slightly different perspective, and you can kind of see where I'm coming from. This could be you right now. You have content, and the grayed out parts are really the ones you actually don't even know if they exist or if they're any good. Going back to what Ryan said. You do provide outbound stuff, you send out emails, you do some ads, You send out newsletters with the goal of driving them to your website so they can fill out a form so they can actually you can contact them or they want to purchase a product of yours. On the inbound side, you're working in SEO and the right words to be able to actually make sure also traditional marketing, which is often for us completely disassociated for some reason, and the numbers really don't fly as much as they should. You put this into your CRM system where your salespeople call emails and make some phone calls, and hopefully you can qualify these leads. The problem with this, it becomes this. I mean, this is what we see in our end in terms of our customers. We're doing this, 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 and this, and to be able to figure out, is SEO really working? If it's working, what type of content is really affecting it? You know, are these digital ads really working? Yeah, I can see maybe on the revenue side, but really, how do I fine tune that? And how do I make it better? How do you constantly change it to make sure the revenue flow is bigger and bigger? And, you know, the idea then is how much does this all cost? Because of all these campaigns, it's sometimes difficult to kind of predict it. So it becomes very, very, very frustrating to be able to actually kind of fine tune this. So with marketing automation, you can. The red circles and the red squares all mean what marketing automation touches. It all starts with content. So if I know exactly what type of content is really being effective, I can actually see based on my target audience, you know, if they're reading this particular content because I'm actually just increasing all of the scores. And I'm actually figure out, is this the right target audience? What about my sub-target audience and so on? Instead of going to the website, I can have custom landing pages that are focused specifically on that particular content, on that particular topic, so I can drive the value proposition further. I'm also be able to actually see my SEO going up because what's really affecting it? What are they searching for? Where are they hitting from my SEO side, from organic? And even from my keywords, what's really affecting it with regard to PPC. And also on social. In this case, for instance, it's a -5 because they criticize something. What also happens is that on the nurture side, you also be able to see a score. And if this score is on a certain level or this person, you know, is not really ready, you can actually then go to create drip campaigns. You can create a personal email. What I mean by personal is I'm looking at this particular guy, I can actually click on send an email, dear, you know, $ first name, blah, blah, blah. So it's very personalized. Everything's recorded, obviously, within your email system, be Gmail or Outlook, and vice versa, obviously. And also, I could have a much bigger connection with traditional marketing because this particular person, you know, attended a convention. You got their card. You immediately see all the other pieces in that particular person's portfolio with regard to what they've accomplished with regard to their journey. So what you get is a complete understanding of this particular person and how you should actually approach them and what their interests are. Really, really powerful stuff. And what I'm saying here is nothing new. This stuff has been around. All the pieces have been there. I'm sure you have, you know, a report that kind of gives you all your hits on the website. You know, half of them are like cable modems and stuff. And I used to have that. I'd get very frustrated because I can't link it to the CRM. I would have, you know, constant contact or something in the previous life to be able to send out emails. Very frustrated because I couldn't really figure out what the effect was. But now you can even drill even further. What this is actually a page that measures all the different clicks where they actually hit it. So if I send out a newsletter, which I created via the drag and drop, I can actually see that this particular link here is a lot higher than anything else, so maybe I should move it up. So not only am I focusing on content, but where to position it and how to actually properly distribute it to be able to get the biggest return, biggest bang for the buck. Let's look at it from a slightly different perspective. Let's suppose I just want to fill out a form for a demonstration of a product. What you're looking at here is a simple workflow that says that if I checked off I want a newsletter, I go to my list, which goes out every week and Friday, that this person will be sent this particular email. In other words, just notify me that this person registered, so I get this particular email here. Very simple. So this is not a flow chart. This is actual product that actually does this. But when you look at a slightly bigger picture, you can be as big as you want. And all this basically does, once this person signs up for a trial, they take him through a journey, a 14-day journey of emails every day that says, hey, you know, they want to do this, they do this. You can literally see people clicking, just going to the next level and so on. And if they actually say, okay, you know what, I really love this product, I want to purchase it, you go here, they convert it, so you don't go down the path anymore. Um, Underneath all of this is content, and it's helpful, good content to guide them through the journey so they can convert. This is very straightforward, and this is the kind of stuff that's out there that you guys can do. So what happens then is once all this stuff is actually related into one in the CRM system, and I just want to comment something about CRM here, that it doesn't need to be new CRM, like I said before. It could be integrated into your older systems, so this way everything just flows. But what I like about this is that I can actually see all of his colleagues here. They've also done the same thing, because what happens? He comes to the website, he looks around, downloads the white paper, then forwards it to a friend of his who does this, and then it goes up to the CEO. So you can actually literally see all the different pieces, all the different pieces or references within the organization. They've been doing the same thing. And see, now you see the bigger picture that's happening within that particular company. So what happens then? So if you actually look at it from the perspective of measurement, if you have all of this, you can break it down many different ways, and you can get all this information if you want it. Or you can just get some very focused information that you know that your content is working, that you know that this is actually happening, that this webinar is really great, and so on. So let's go back to this particular slides that we showed earlier. So what I was able to do is kind of get rid of website traffic as the biggest reliance with regard to measuring success, and start looking at these pieces, which are much harder to do, but are definitely doable. And now you understand why one of the top trends is content marketing, because you're able to measure it. The second one is big data. There's a reason for it, because you want to be able to take all this information, process it, and really, make the ROI that you need to make your business run. And you notice the SEO and so on, social are lower. Doesn't mean they're not important, but without content and people realize it, it's just not going to happen as well as it should. So let's talk about data for a second. If you're able to store all of this information in a relational database, I don't care what that database is, it be SQL Server or AWS, whatever you want, you're able to slice it and dice it. So give me all the white papers that were downloaded more than 75% of the time. Alert me when lead goes above 150 and tell me what other colleagues from his company visited the site. What percentage of people clicked on the new product link in the email newsletter I sent them? Should I position it higher next time? I want my existing CRM updated with information so that my salespeople see who to call first in the morning. Tell me what content pages on my site are not getting any attention. Send a certain white paper from the CEO. The customer just called me quick. I need to know this entire journey. This is absolutely doable. It's looking at the other technology. It's first in the enterprise. They spent a lot of money on it, and now anybody can go and do this and really kind of slice it, dice it the way they want to, as opposed to those charts which are paid, those dashboards which show you how many likes you have and what's traffic you have. It just annoys me with regard to they're just numbers that to help you do nothing. So if you want to actually simplify things, here's what you do. You set up your business goals, and that's always the case, obviously. What do you want to accomplish? You create, find, and update unique and engaging content. I guarantee you there's so much content out there that you're actually spending currently money on that's not really being used and not really being engaged, but you're spending money on it. The reason I talk about money here is because that's the budget that you can have to be able to focus on much more productive marketing efforts. Implement marketing automation. Now, that's not hard. If you know Constant Contact or anything, you can just start with that. There's no complexity there where suddenly, oh my God, I need to be a rocket scientist. So then you focus on creating the right marketing programs to leverage the content. So what you're actually doing is now you're tracking it. You're agreeing the KPIs and the measurements, what you want to accomplish with regard to that particular tracking. You integrate it with your CRM. So now you're actually able to kick off workflow from CRM system. You educate your salespeople on how to leverage this new information, because suddenly some views are going to be different. They're going to get more emails and so on. Then you measure and you measure and you measure. This is the key part to it all, and this needs to be simple. It's not about going to 12 different places and trying to get bounce rates and so on. It's about letting the system do it for you, letting you get the right reports that you can actually say, okay, this is important. Let's focus on this and not on this. So when you do that, you find that budget, as I mentioned before, so you can actually leverage it more effectively and better. And so be prepared to run the program for at least 6 months. You have to be able to measure this stuff. And unfortunately, with, for instance, PPC, which I call Google Crack, it's difficult. People want instant results. I want something in 3 months. And you can. But when you're trying to do a strategy, first you got to clean out your attic. First you got to clean out your basement, and paint your house to be able to kind of make sure that the strategy works. And once it's rolling along and you actually fine tuning it, that's when your time frames get smaller and smaller. Get the executive buy-in, and it's not about showing Google Analytics to the CEO or talking about rankings. It's really about, here's how we're making money, here's how we're calculating, here's how our sales department is much more productive, and here's how we're doing conversions. Because I can actually find that. Because I can say, give me all the conversions with the score of 150 or more, which I know that means I've been very active on my website and all my digital marketing efforts, so I know that they're paying off. And then if the measurements still need to continue, just go back to step 2 and just go down again the list until you got it right, and then it gets really, really focused and simple. So how can I even make it more simple? If you ever email your customers or use constant contact, you'll get this. If your company has great products and good stories to tell, you'll get this. And if you're spending money and not sure where it's going, you'll get this. It's just that straightforward. So what are the next steps? What we offer is a strategy workshop where we sit down with you and really align your strategy to the content marketing automation processes and the variables and so on. We do an SEO audit because SEO is not only about keywords, it's also looking at your content, which is obviously number 3, but also looking at the front end, understanding, how your website is designed, is it mobile and so on. And the CRM audit, to look at the integration points, to look at how your processes are, look at your workflow, look at what kind of reports are you doing, and how can you actually get that information from marketing automation to be able to actually fly directly to your salespeople. So what we've accomplished is going from this, which is, to me, is chaos, to be able to actually go into here, do the same thing that we're doing here, but a much more proactive, measurable way with greater sense of success because we're actually able to calculate the ROI. And the ROI is actually an interesting number because it is different to every company. So, you can have that formula that I gave you if you want to be, like a formula in a book. But once this is fine-tuned, this becomes really, really, really intense and profitable, obviously. So that's the end of the presentation. So I just want to thank you very much for joining us. We do have 10 minutes, so if somebody wants to maybe type in some questions, we'll be happy to answer. Well, if anybody's typing, I'll just say some things. The first, I believe it's the first 20 folks will be receiving an email with regard to downloading the free book, the Kindle book from Ryan, which is an amazing book. It's really a great read. And this webinar will be posted, so you can show this to your colleagues, Oh, I think I let it, everybody's unmuted now, so you can ask if you wish to.
These came in. Yeah, I want to get on her account on the 24th. I want to get
Somebody have a question?
Stuff for everyone. These came in.
Well, thank you, everybody, and have a great day.